Look at this amazing panel. All right, so my name is Ken Davis. I am representing the Culture Impact team here at Church for All Nations. I did want to go over just a couple things. First, if you have a smart or dumb version of one of these, please put it on silent, vibrate, or airplane mode. That would work as well. There's a couple announcements. You saw on the screen there that we will be having our school board forum on October 13th. There's also an event that, how many of you ever heard of FEC? So someone got really excited. So they're going to have an event actually this coming weekend as well. This election integrity thing is really popular. I wonder why. So you had Truth and Liberty this past Monday. You have us tonight, and then this weekend, FEC will be hosting their election integrity town hall. So I am here to have us all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. If you have anyone that is at home and would like to join us, this is available online, streaming live, both on our YouTube channel, as well as you can go to cultureimpactteam.us, and you'll find us there as well. I would like to introduce the gentleman that will be handling our panel today, Mr. Mark Bronlick, who is a dear friend of mine. He decided to go study law late in life. But he's a brilliant man, and he is, see, I'm just pouring he's well-dressed, and according to his wife, he's handsome. You're handsome. So everyone, Mark Bronlick.
So this works, I don't have to do anything. It just works. Wow, I wish everything were like that. Thank you for being here. It's a real encouragement. The panel up here are all volunteer citizens working their heart out, using their own resources, their own time. They're subjected to censorship, to personal attacks, etc. So you being here is a lot of encouragement to each one of them up here. So thank you for being here. Today's an anniversary. I just feel compelled to mention this anniversary. Today is Nathan Hale's 245th anniversary of his hanging. So in 1976, he was 21 years old. He was a Yale School graduate. He was, what did I say? 1960. What's a few centuries? I'm getting in the spirit of election integrity here. What's it? Show me the evidence. That's not really. So in 1776, he was 21 years old. He was a captain in the Continental Army, and Washington was looking for a spy, which at that time was a pretty lowly task. He volunteered without hesitation. He was captured, and he went to New York City to see what the British were doing in New York. He got the information. He was captured on the way back the evening of September 21st, 1776, and he was hung the next morning, September 22nd. Quick. But, you know, when I look at what won our liberty in the Revolution, it was courage. It really comes down to courage. And do we have the courage to retain it? Do we, not our officials, not other people, but do we, the people, have the courage to maintain it? You know, Jefferson put it in our nation's birth certificate, the Declaration of Independence. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, us. So the absolute foundation of our country is the legitimacy of our vote. That's the absolute foundation of anything our governing officials should be concerned with, is protecting that. Because if that's not protected, if we don't have confidence in that, You can't get more basic than that. So all we want is an honest investigation to know the truth. That's all we want. That's what we want. And there's certainly plenty of evidence to support that call. Unfortunately, we seem to be paying public officials who seem to be less than eager to establish the truth of the matter. Instead, impassioned citizens are using their own time, money, and resources to investigate. And it's, as I mentioned, it's not a quest for the faint of heart. So I'd just like to see a show of hands. How many people in here would like a full forensic audit of El Paso County paper ballots and paper envelopes with a canvas? Pretty much unanimous. But who are you? We the people. So the structure of the evening, the first hour is going to be the panelists talking about what's going on, and then at approximately probably 5 or 10 minutes after 8, we'll do question and answers for about 45 minutes. So each panelist will have 10 minutes to speak, except for Sean. You just can't hold him down. So he gets 2 segments of 10 minutes. Now, first of all, I'd like to know, are there any public officials in the room? If there are, could you raise your hand? Public officials. Okay. Ron, you want to stand up and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, Ron,
Okay. And do we have anybody who's running for office this coming? Go ahead.
My name is David Money. I'm running for Secretary of State to replace Jenna
And I'm Greg Lopez. I'm running for governor.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Wait a second. Could you repeat that? Okay, great. No one up here is running for anything.
No. We're fixing it so
Just-
it's fair when they run.
Oh, fixing it? Correcting it. So the election will be fair. Okay. The first person up will be Ash Epp, and it's Ash, A-S-H-E, Ash. And she's one of the co-founders of USCIP, which is United States Election Integrity Plan. And she's a whirlwind, and I'll let her explain what she's doing. Go ahead, Ash.
Is this thing on? Who knows about USCIP? Oh, good. Yeah, you better. Good numbers. So U.S. Election Integrity Plan started on November 7th. 5 people who were really, really mad strangers met at the U.S. Capitol, at the Denver Capitol, Colorado Capitol in Denver. Next week, we were a few more. The following week, we were a few more. And then we said, you know what, we really need to get organized. Incredibly talented people. We're now over 1,000 people in Colorado. And we've built USCIP with 0 fundraising, 0 donations. We want you, We will never ask you for money. We want you to bring your skills, talents, and passions to bear on the fight for election integrity, and that strategy has worked out pretty darn well for us so far. So we do a few things in USCIP. We speak at events. We are doing voter verification canvassing to do a people's audit of the vote, and that includes El Paso County, which Charity will speak a little bit about. We have a data and analytics team that rivals corporate America, and I'm a technology consultant, so I can say that and mean it. And Sean will talk a little bit more about what all that entails. But really, our purpose is to take back self-governance. We want to enable people to realize that you don't have to wait for somebody to come and save you, because nobody's coming. We have to save ourselves, and we have everything we need. What I tell people when, so one of my favorite things in USCIP is making new joiner phone calls when people are they're finally fed up and they decide to get involved. We vet and verify everybody, so we call every new joiner to USCIP and have a phone conversation, and it's one of my favorite parts because people are so fired up, and you can hear it and you can feel it. It's in the air, the tide is turning, and we are going to win. But what I tell people is, I want you to think of that thing when you're doing it, you're super intellectually turned on, time is flying by, you're in the zone, and you know that you were born to do that thing. That's what I want you to bring to the movement to save the country. Because that's what you have. That's your toolkit. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That is why God created you and put you here during this time. We are all created for such a time as this. This is the time that we are supposed to be standing up, trying to stay directly in the center of God's will and doing the work that He has laid out for us. And that's how USCIP was formed. We just got started. And we pray. Not everybody in USCIP is a believer. We're working on them. We pray. We have incredible communication. And one thing to know about USCIP is we're not really an organization. We're an association of like-minded people. And so there are counties in Colorado, and we have representation in all 64 Colorado counties. There are counties in Colorado where there was already a flourishing movement for freedom happening, and they spun up an election integrity committee. They joined USCIP, and now we're connected, right? So we have coalitions built in all 64 counties in Colorado. We are in at least 20 other states, and it may have changed because we're growing so fast. And we're making an impact. And that's one of the things that's so important for me to people, important to me for people to understand. Your impact is not determined by how much funds you're able to raise. It's not determined by what elected officials will listen to you. It's not determined by whether or not the mainstream media is carrying the impact that you're having. It's determined on the ground, in your local community, driving change one person, one conversation at a time. And that is why we need every single one of you. Like I said, we'll never ask you for money. We want you. And if you're not in the fight, I want a doctor's note. I'm not going to take my full time. I'm going to give it to Sean because he just can't help himself. Okay, so the U.S. Election Integrity Plan, thank you, Mark, is at uscip.org. You can sign up there if you're not already signed up to help. And why aren't you already signed up to help? There's a job for everybody. So what we do it all. Like I said, we have data analysts, scientists, mathematicians, we have artists, we have videographers and writers, we have legislative specialists, and so whatever skill it is for you, whatever talent it is, we need it. and there's a role for you to fill. So you can find out more information, sign up at useip.org. That is also where you will see the MESA report press release that came out from USEIP yesterday, where you can download that report. You can also read the analysis. If you want to support Tina Peters' legal defense, which is absolutely needed, Tina Peters is a hero, absolute hero. Yeah, she deserves a big round of applause. You can go to standwithtina.org, and then I think we can do the rest of these later.
This sheet is available in the back if you don't have it already. So it lists the different websites. It lists some interesting videos that are very, very good at giving you a historical background of the election system in Colorado. And also, Ash is being somewhat modest. She's quite a writer. And she has a website, Ash in America. And her latest article, I have the link to that here, which is what happened in Mesa County. So again, this is, if you don't already have it, it's in the back. The next person is Sean, and this will be the first of his 2 10-minute segments. I didn't recognize Sean tonight. I was looking around, where is Sean? He dressed incognito. If anybody's seen him he seems to find his way onto national news networks and the Lindell's channel, etc. But he's always in a cap and a sweatshirt. So this is a new look for me as well as for you. You hear that? Cat calls already. He is single. No, he's not. No, he's not. Okay, I take that back. He's a retired Air Force colonel that has a very interesting background, and I know I will not say it correctly, so I'll let him tell you what he does. But he is a phenomenal investigator into the dark side of the digital world. And so, Sean, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sean Smith, and I'm a conspiracy theorist. If you read the news, I'm a conspiracy theorist. That perspective is getting a lot harder to maintain, isn't it? Yeah. So thank you for having me back and having us back. I appreciate everybody taking an interest in election integrity, because it's us or nobody, and it's a lot of private citizens just doing whatever they can do and whatever they have time for, fitting it in around their kids and their housework and everything else. And that is what makes the difference. Like, you just never know whose action where, whose comment, whose connection is going to make the difference. I was down in Fremont County. I got invited down there to go down and listen to a clerk tell everybody what he had been told, and that wasn't true. But and I tried to have that discussion with him. They did a good job of controlling the questions, so he didn't have to wild card. But at the end there, it kind of got away from him. So I was asking him if, do you want to know what's true? Do you want to have a discussion? And his response back to me was to lie about something that did not occur, that they've kind of smeared me with. And the great part about that is later on I heard from a citizen down there in Fremont County who was saying, hey, sorry, I didn't realize you guys were going to be there. I would have come up to meet you. But, and this is my favorite part, I could hear this over and over again. This was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It was dark out. We couldn't come meet you because I was out canvassing. So the clerk was looking at me, like a squirrel, and citizens at the exact same moment were out getting it done, and that is going to get it done. So, and that's the story, of the last 8 months. So I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing what I was trained to do in November and December, And then I ended up meeting Ash and the USCIP folks and getting connected to Neil and to Mark and some of the other kind of El Paso-centric people. And then since then, we've been connected to everybody. And I basically fail to respond back to people from 10, 12 states a day now, looking for information, trying to replicate some of what we've done or to share things with us, and they do that too. We get information out of Voter GA in Georgia. We've gotten information and shared information with them and with Arizona and with North Carolina and North Dakota and with Minnesota and with New Hampshire and with California. And you know, pick a state. Citizens are talking now, and nothing's going to stop it. They're trying. They're trying. They're trying to smear everybody in the media. They're trying to discourage people. They're trying to pass, you know, rules and laws that will restrict citizens from supervising their own elections. It won't stand. And it's just a matter of time. They know they're on borrowed time with the lie. And, you know, when we were here before, we talked about the things that needed to be done. We talked about what would happen. I think I said, you know, the moment a qualified cybersecurity forensic team gets a hold of these machines, the lies will be over. And guess what's happening right now? So, you know, they've made some in addition to lying and trying to deprive American citizens of their rightful sovereignty over their nation and their control and supervision over elections and public officials and the affairs of government, they have made some other errors. And one of the errors they made was an unforced one of going hard after Clerk Peters. So when we talked to you last time, we were trying to talk and encouraging citizens, go talk to your public officials. Talk to your clerks, talk to your commissioners, try to get them to listen. And we did that in a lot of counties. And in a lot of counties, it fell on deaf ears, and which is saddening. It's saddening and disgusting in a sense. And I don't blame necessarily all the clerks. I mean, it is their sworn duty, and they're neglecting it by and large. But they've also been misled. That much has become increasingly clear. The more we dig into the organizations, institutions, and individuals who've been involved in putting this system that is rife for fraud, and I think likely fraudulent, the more that we have discovered about them, the more we see the manner in which they have instituted and reinforced this ecosystem that takes control away from citizens and hands it to unelected people. And then the elected officials, unfortunately, I think like a lot of our clerks, it's a puppet show. They have no idea what they're looking at. I mean, we had, I saw an email today, it was some citizens. We've encouraged citizens to take this first initial report from Mesa, and there will be other reports. The forensic examiners are nowhere near done, and they're just getting started. And already, what is evident from that report, a cyber forensic, and you know, the advocates of the theory that this is a conspiracy theory, that I'm a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the cyber forensic expert that has secured Department of Defense systems for 25 years, the other cyber forensic, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay. So it's the Colorado County Clerks Association, those guys know. The same guy who had to admit finally that there were wireless modems in our voting machines and then claimed that they were turned off. That was at the same meeting where this clerk in Fremont County says I threatened to assault someone. And so we haven't sent the letter yet, but he's going to get a letter. And I might as well say it here because it's been so long. But what Clerk Grantham doesn't know is that we have an audio recording of the meeting that he's saying that I threatened someone in. That didn't happen. He's lying. It's going to be made clear. And that's the way with the truth. But anyway, so I saw an email today from response from El Paso County Clerk and Recorder Broerman, who we tried to talk to him. I mean, I personally put together some information about the vulnerabilities in the system. We tried to talk to him about it. He was not interested in the least in that. He wanted to talk about things I don't think he even remotely understands about Dr. Frank's presentation. And then he made the same presentation the next day to legislators, GOP legislators up at the Independence Institute. That's where Representative Hanks, thankfully, I'm grateful to him for bringing me so that I could hear the lies that they were telling to legislators. So anyway, Clerk Browerman sent this email back to a constituent responding that yes, he had preserved all the election records, and what he's saying is just untrue. I think he may actually think he's preserving all the election records, because I don't think most of the clerks understand that everything that happens on the computer systems has to be logged. And all those logs are election records that have to be preserved, because otherwise you have no idea what took place on the machines. And so that was what I was trying to say to Clerk Grantham, is that, I'm afraid you've been misled, and they have been misled. And it's hard to tell sometimes which, whether they are truly ignorant or whether they are willfully ignorant. But once they cling to it, once they insist on those talking points, despite professionals and experts coming to them and trying to tell them what's true, at that point, I'm unsympathetic, because there are very few public officials in the state who have actually listened to their constituents' concerns. Clerk Peters is one of them, and that's why they brought everything they had against her. That's why they tried to get CBI and the FBI. That's why the Department of Justice is tracking it. And the problem they've got is that the truth is coming out. So they weren't in control of everything. They're trying to put that genie back in the box, and it's too late. It's too late. Is that 10 minutes? Am I done? So there's the cybersecurity exploitation is just getting started. So there's 63 other counties, and I want to say this because we said it before, and people get really hung up on Dominion voting systems, and I'm not praising Dominion voting systems, but I want to also say there is not a computerized or electronic voting system in existence that can be trusted. I mean it. Because the truth is, our public officials, for the most part, I don't know if there are other than Representative Hanks, I don't know how many others there are, and I'm not trying to denigrate him, but I've seen the threat. I've seen the best defenders in the Department of Defense versus the threat, and the threat always has an upper hand. You have to figure out creative ways to protect yourself against a threat like that, including not exposing your attack surface, meaning not, giving them opportunities. We don't do that with our voting and election systems. I mean, since last time, I think I mentioned the statewide Colorado registration system that's exposed to the public internet. The data analytics team that Ash mentioned discovered, as a result of a Colorado Open Records Act request, that Colorado registration system not only had connections, if I remember correctly, from all 50 states. I don't know who in Hawaii needed to access Colorado's voter registration system where we stole all the signatures, but they did. And not only from across the US, but from multiple other countries overseas. And not only multiple other countries overseas, but any one of those connections that was outside Colorado could have just been the first hop, right? So if I'm a hacker or a advanced persistent threat team for a foreign country, or even an advanced threat that's a non-governmental, I don't show my IP address. I don't say, hey, this is Sean and I'm hacking you. It's masked. It's masked by going through multiple hops to obscure the origin of the attack and where data is flowing to. And so any one of those hops that are outside Colorado from that list of IP addresses that connected to our statewide Colorado registration system, any one of them could have been a foreign power, and many of them probably were. And we had to find that out by making the Open Records Act request. Now they're restricting those. They didn't realize when they were sending it to us what they were giving us. And it's too late, again, because we now know what's true. Not only do we know that they weren't protected, not only do we know that they connected, but now we know they're hiding it. So, if you got an audit from the IRS, they'd look at everything. But our government wants to audit itself when it comes to election systems. It's ludicrous and it's unsatisfactory, and people aren't going to stand for it. We're not going to stand for it.
Sean? In your next 10-minute segment, you're going to talk about the specifics of Mesa County and Clark Peters, correct? Because there may be some people that don't know exactly what transpired up there. So even, starting with the basic facts. But in the question and answer time, you'll have plenty of time to ask Sean questions. He is a deep, deep well, and a lot has been happening. And the next person up is Charity McPike. And Charity is the face of USEIP in Colorado Springs. And she's going to talk about building the team in Colorado Springs and about the canvassing that's been going on.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys. I'm just privileged to be up here among these guys. So they're working so hard, and I'm learning so much. But first of all, I wanted to say welcome, QAnons. You joined the ranks. They're calling us that. So, I mean, it's right alongside conspiracy theorists and the big lie and all that. But no, we've got a lot of our canvassers that are out here tonight, or a few, and I wanted to thank some of them. Deb Gray, who works alongside me as a coordinator, county coordinator, and Linda Wilson, who does our data analytics till 5:30 in the morning. We have Len Albertson, who is has the record of doing more door knocking in El Paso County than anyone in the history of the United States, I think. Ernie, anyways, a lot of great people are out here. Pam, Cheryl, so sorry, I can't say hi to all of you, but we need more. We need more. If we had half this room out canvassing this weekend, we could probably finish. I think we could probably finish in the next couple weeks if we had half of you. We are about 50% of the way there. Basically, we're not out looking for a certain amount of fraud, although we're finding it. We're out there trying to have a certain number of conversations. So we're working with Walklist. Like I said, we've got Linda Wilson here, who brilliant woman who has worked for the Pentagon and taught at the Air Force Academy. And like Ash said, we have just brilliant, passionate people who aren't going to let the country be taken. And we're not going to let our county be taken. So Linda, yep. So what we do, I'll just real quickly, Linda will provide us with a walk list, a route, and kind of like what the post office would have back when they were going door to door delivering mail. The list comes from the Secretary of State, raw data, that shows us exactly who voted from each address and what their affiliation was, what their age is, did they vote by mail or in person, and pretty much that's it. So we'll know, hey, at this address, 2 people, according to Jenna, voted. So the canvassers, after we've trained them, we get out there with partners. Everyone has an experienced partner. We typically go out in crews and have big community canvasses on the weekend. We like to call it a party. So everybody should join the party. It's fun. But once we get out there, we'll go to the doors in a particular precinct and have a conversation and just say, hey, take a look at what the Secretary of State has provided us with. Is this accurate? We just want to ensure the integrity of our elections, make sure everything looks good. Oftentimes we'll find different anomalies. Someone will say, my spouse isn't listed. We both voted from this address. Why isn't he on there? We write up an affidavit. Sometimes they'll say, I don't recognize this other person. Oh, wait, they lived here 4 years before I bought the house. In fact, an elected official had that conversation with us recently. In fact, I think it was 12 years ago. That was the renter that lived in the house. And I continue to get his ballots. So some of that is just cleaning up the voter rolls. But then we also come across phantom votes, right? People that no one ever has heard of. Someone who built a new home out east said, we just built the house 3 months ago, and it showed that someone voted from that address. How many months ago now? 9? Yeah. But then some of the better ones, our Ash was down here helping one day, and she found just I don't know if it was abandoned, but a empty storage unit. Voter, cast a vote.
2 of them. They was an 87-year-old and an 85-year-old live in that storage unit, and they both voted.
Yeah. According to Jenna. So anyway, you find some interesting stuff out there. And, like I said, we're not seeking out fraud, but we know it's there because we all woke up on November 4th to the same reality, right? Which wasn't reality. So, yeah, really, guys, I mean, we have 170 volunteers here now. We try to get everybody out as often as we can. Some folks aren't door knocking. Some people are afraid to speak to the public or don't like the public and just don't like people, and that's okay. You don't have to talk. You can just stand back and be there as a partner who provides safety and a witness so that if we were to ever be accused of intimidation, which we've not in Colorado, and we're very cautious in our training to make sure that that's not going to happen. But we have someone there just to stand back and witness the situation. So we need your help. Like I said, we get out almost every Saturday and Sunday. We do some training ahead of time. We hook everybody up with a walker who has experience, and there's no reason why everybody here can't get out there. We have people that have diabetes and are missing toes that get out there with us in one capacity or another, literally, and COPD and you name it. And they're so passionate and dedicated.
No guilt there.
What's that?
No guilt there. Man, what kind of reactions have you been getting from people? Have there been any positive?
Yeah, you know what? I'd say more positive than negative. People are, of course, surprised to see us at their door. But typically, I mean, early on, I think we learn as we go how to navigate all of this. And early on, when we were holding our clipboards like this, people were leery. What are you looking at? And so now, I mean, one of the things I encourage the walkers to do is show them. Hey, I want to show you what I've got. This is what we pulled from the Secretary of State's raw information. Does this look right to you? We just want to ensure it.
So do you ask people how they voted?
Never. No. Some people want to tell us. Some people are proud, and we get it. We get it. We're proud too. But no, we never do. And we let them know we don't care how you voted. We don't. We really don't care about your party affiliation, except that is one of our questions. We show that you're unaffiliated. Is that accurate? And I think more times than not, that's a pretty popular affidavit where someone will say, no, I'm definitely part of a party. Whether they'll tell us or not, we'll say, you're sure that you weren't unaffiliated? Nope, unbeknownst to them, they've been switched to unaffiliated.
So what do you do with the information that you collect?
So once we collect it, we ask the resident, would you be willing to fill out an affidavit? It's very little information. Oftentimes they're willing to, absolutely. There's some people that say, no, I'm not, I'm glad you have my information, but I'm not going to sign anything, which is fine because we're a witness. So we just fill out an affidavit as a witness to the conversation. We get it notarized, and we're collecting those for use both in and out of court.
So these are all public records then?
Public records, that's right.
Nothing hidden.
Nothing hidden, Chuck.
In my experience, the only people that have an issue with us watch Rachel Maddow. So if you watch Rachel Maddow, and I saw a clip, you will think that we are coming to your door, forcing a pistol in your mouth, and demanding to know who you voted for.
I mean, that's not true.
Not for everyone.
All right, thanks, Charity.
Yep, thank you.
And is there a booth outside?
I did want to say that we have a table outside the door, so anyone who would be interested in having us contact you, find out what you could do, not everybody has to walk. There's plenty of other areas we can use your help. Phone calls, reaching out to the commissioners. We've got a list of questions that you can call and ask Chuck. Ask him about the image, right? Is there really an image? We've got questions that we would love for you to just make phone calls and write letters on, or go for it on your own, and we'll help you find out who represents you so that you can reach out to them. But
It's available on useip.org.
it's also available at useip.org.
That's a one-stop shop.
But,
Okay.
And good stories. My gosh, good writing.
John, you're next again. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to say, just show of hands, does anybody think it matters whether your party affiliation is accurate? If you do think it matters, can you just show your hands? Anybody brave enough want to answer the question why it matters? Yes, sir. So his answer was about caucuses and what you can get involved in and not get involved in, and that's accurate. But there's something much more serious that most people don't realize. One, when you see the election results, if you saw a bunch of Republican voters vote for Joe Biden, that might get your attention. But if you see a bunch of unaffiliated voters vote for Joe Biden, the storyline we've been told is, well, they're just, they were dissatisfied with the GOP or the Democrat Party, but really Colorado's unaffiliated voters lean a certain way. That's what we've been told. That's the story. We've even heard that from GOP. And by the way, I'm not a Republican. I'm going to be a Republican at some point, I think, because well, one party is insane and the other one has so far been mostly useless. But we're going to fix that too.
Okay. Sean, I just want to make the transition. Thank you, Charity. I appreciate all the work you're doing. Now, it's tough to keep a good man down. I just want to say it's yours now for the next 10 minutes. But the one thing that we want you to get into is the specifics of Mesa County, and a lot will come up during question and answer.
The one other thing I want to say, and people don't realize this is important too. Do you know how the Redistricting Commission members are chosen? So if the state isn't actually a third, and a third, then we have the wrong distribution of members on that Redistricting Commission. Now who thinks all three of the unaffiliated members are really unaffiliated? Okay, so Mesa. So we talked to all the clerks, pretty much. We had people send them memos and letters and emails. We went and talked to a lot of them in person. Citizens took their own time to go talk to them. Were mostly ignored with platitudes. Everybody knew that somebody could do a real backup, and everybody thought that somebody might do a backup or that anybody could do a backup. But at the end of the day, hardly anyone did a full backup. And Clerk Peters was one of them. And the Secretary of State didn't know it. And that's why we have it. So here's the law. So U.S. Title 52, U.S. Code 20701 requires preservation of election records involving a federal office like Senate, House, President for 22 months after the election. And it doesn't give a separate definition of election records. So the federal definition of records is elsewhere. Colorado statute says that you have to preserve the election records for 25 months after an election, but it tries it's ambiguous, but it tries to limit the description of records. Then in addition to that, there are standards, rules, for election conduct, including how they preserve records, that are promulgated by the Secretary of State. So she has the authority that's given by the legislature that sets rules. They tell the Secretary of State, you can establish election rules. Those are Colorado Code of Regulations. And so she establishes these rules, I think it's section 1501 of the Colorado Code of Regulations. And then she provides also these conditions of use, which she says, I've certified these machines and here how you have to use them. And between all of those, including the technical guidance, manuals, and user guides that she approves, and not just her, but her predecessors as well, that they approve, that are these vendor-provided from the voting system vendor technical manuals, it gives instructions to the Colorado County clerks who execute the elections under the supervision of their county commissioners in coordination with the Secretary of State's office and her election staff. And those rules should have covered everything that they were supposed to preserve as records. And instead, what this forensic examination of the systems has demonstrated quite conclusively is that the certification did not provide, and the documentation from the Secretary of State did not provide guidance, nor training, nor capacity to the clerks of the counties to preserve the election records that they are required by law to preserve. not only did they provide guidance to the county clerks, and this is all in the report, you can read it for yourself. It's written in, I like to describe it as third grade English because a lot of our media like to say somehow it's inconclusive or ambiguous. I don't see how it could be more clear. I mean, we can use smaller words if they need them. There are going to be more, I'm not making this up, in the next report, there are going to be more pictures. For our media. It might even be like a, what are those books called where you can, you choose your own adventure? They might get their names in them. Like Eric, here's what happened on the machine. And so not only did the rules and standards and procedures that the Colorado Secretary of State received from the voting system vendor, now she had the responsibility to make sure that those rules and systems combined as a certified configuration ensured that law was upheld, that the standards were met. And those standards, according to the Colorado Revised Statutes, are the 2002 voting system standards. Now, those standards were established by the Federal Election Commission before the U.S. Election Administration Assistance Commission was even established in 2003. They since have newer rules, which are even more explicit about what those machines, especially commercial off the shelf, which they're not, we talked about that before, they're really specified, they're a custom configuration ordered by the vendors from an overseas manufacturing facility with no supply chain security. They can never be trusted. They trust them anyway. But those standards are really explicit about the type of files that you have to have from the machines in order to be able to audit them. So the law says you have to be able to audit them, and you preserve the records required for that. The voting system standards tell you what to log so that you can audit them. And Colorado state law says the voting machines have to meet that standard, and yet the Secretary of State certified systems and provided to the counties these manuals and systems that do not save those records. In fact, the county clerks are told in the manuals to configure the systems in such a way that it overwrites the log files. And that's before they ever get there for a trusted build. The trusted build is the most misnamed procedure imaginable. So the trusted build is the Secretary of State gets this configuration that has theoretically been tested by an accredited voting system testing lab. That didn't happen, but they weren't accredited. They're a testing lab for what it's worth, but they weren't accredited at the time they did it. They get this trusted build, and that's an image that the Secretary of State's team and the voting system vendor are going to come and write onto the voting systems. When they do that, they overwrite. They overwrite the files that were on that hard drive. The hard drives they're using are $50 to $75 a piece. I have, this will probably come back and bite me when they raid my house, but I probably have 15 hard drives in my house in different places and some in other storage locations. I don't ever get rid of a hard drive, ever. They're not expensive. They could have just brought new drives, written onto the new drives, saved the old data, but that's not what they do. So when you read that report, there are two very clear indicators in there. One, the county clerks were set up to violate the law. The Secretary of State violated the law. It was her obligation to provide systems that were certified to the Colorado standard that met that legal standard. She didn't do it. Their procedures, both in the trusted build and that they've provided to county clerks, have guaranteed that the right and ability of citizens to audit their elections has been impeded critically throughout the state. And I'm not just talking about Dominion. If they don't know that they did it, then they don't know enough to be involved as election officials. And they should resign or be removed. If they do know they did it, they should go to jail. Was that enough? So what else is happening now in Mesa County is, there's a fight for control over the election. In addition to that illegality, the Secretary of State declared herself able to remove an elected official and replace an elected official. That's not constitutional. I'm not even an attorney. I can read. That's not in her authorities at all. I literally can look up her authorities on her own site, and that's not in them. And she still gave the order and didn't actually go do the only thing she's authorized to do, which is to do an enforcement action through a district court in the state being represented by the Colorado Attorney General as her counsel. That's her only authority to enforce anything with respect to election code. And she only did it when the citizens pushed back and got the feckless commissioners to finally say, well, we don't think we're going to let you do that. Of course, they appointed somebody else, and they can't do that either. And if she hasn't vacated her office, so all that is coming to a head. But it's just the start, and all that happened because of the citizens on the Western Slope, that showed up by the, hundreds to tell the commissioners what they wanted of their elected officials. Now, they were ignored, but they're not done. They're not done. So,
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, everybody.
How much sleep do you get a night? How much sleep do you get a night? I'm assuming you get some. Okay, all right. The next speaker is Neil Shore, who's a former Iowa State Senator he has to slow down to drink coffee. He knows a lot of people, gets around, has talked with legislators in Arizona, in different states, has a broader picture of broad picture of what's going on with legislators, and also has a definite opinion about what kind of expectations we as citizens should have of our elected officials. Go ahead, Neil.
Thank you, Mark. And it's really an honor to be up here on this platform with ASHAP, who's just been tireless. Sean, who is the finest analyst that I've run across. I've learned more from Sean over the last several months in just how important our election system is and why we cannot let this go, why we have to follow it through. And Charity, the effort that she's doing with voter verification, boots on the ground here in El Paso County, I want each one of you in this room to come up to her and thank her and volunteer to be part of the effort in whatever area we need to do.
No matter how many toes you have.
And so, as a former state senator, I view things as I represent people. And I learned very quickly once I entered into the Iowa Senate, not all legislators look at that way. They're looking for their own political career. They're looking for the next thing that they can do. They get interested in a certain area. But I viewed myself as a citizen legislator, and I represented the interests of the people in my district. And I expected them to challenge me, to share their views. Didn't make any difference who they voted for or whatever, but that's what I look for in an elected representative. We send them in a representative republic to represent us and our interests. So as we go through, so I view it through that lens and through it that eye. I also view it through a biblical worldview. I'm a follower of Jesus. There are certain standards that we have as a Christian in the public arena, how we deal with other people, how we do things. And so as we started, way back in November, and looking at what went on, and I know we were all in shock, and then December, and all of the things that came through. But what I really came to the conclusion of, with a lens, as a representative of the people, doing my homework and doing my research, there's something not right in El Paso County in our elections. Even squeaky clean El Paso County. And, you know, we're all Republicans, we're conservative, we do things, and we just expect people to play by the rules. But as time has gone on in the 15 years that I've lived here, you know, when we look at the last election, we had 54% Republican, 43% Democratic vote in El Paso County. 54-43. It's suspicious. You look at Congressman Lamborn winning 60-40 pretty consistently in his elections and things like that. But that's not good enough for El Paso County. We need to come out 70-30 to offset Denver, Boulder, to offset some of those places. So we have to work hard to make sure that our conservative values are represented to folks and things like that. Another thing that came out, 20% increase in voter turnout in 2020. 20% voter turnout. To me, that's suspicious. That just isn't typical how elections are run. And then, this is kind of the kicker, 50% increase in Democratic votes in El Paso County. It's suspicious. And all of this information we have shared with our clerk and recorder. We've shared vulnerabilities. We've shared these voting anomalies. We've shared the data and information. In fact, on May 18th, myself, Sean, Charity, Ash, and a group of citizens were in there meeting with Chuck, and he was gracious. He gave us 2 hours and things like that, our clerk and recorder, and shared with him the importance of holding back on the trusted build, updating the computer equipment, laid all the facts out. Sean did a great job of doing it, and yet he kind of nodded his head and acknowledged, but yet within the next week, that trusted build was done in El Paso County. So we as citizens of El Paso County, it's time now that we hold our elected officials accountable. We have to make sure that they don't defend the bureaucracy, defend some organization they belong to, or defend a Secretary of State that has overstepped her bounds in our Constitution. We're talking now, not only our clerk and recorder, who we elect to run our elections, we delegate that to him or her, also our county commissioners. Our county commissioners, as we've done all of this work in understanding the responsibility of what was done in Mesa County and Sean and the individuals that he has worked with, one thing is very clear in Colorado code. County commissioners can choose what kind of election equipment we use. And it's time now for us as citizens of El Paso County to start requesting, encouraging, directing, demanding our county commissioners take a look at our election processes here in El Paso County. And one of the things that I have found, and again, in the news media, all the things that are out here, right now, the lady sitting to the left of me is probably one of the finest investigative reporters out there. Also, a lady by the name of Holly at Altitude is another very good investigative reporter. And if you haven't been to either of those websites to read the deep dive in what they've done working not only with our current Secretary of State, our previous Secretary of State, and even our previous Secretary of State, who have kind of got us into this situation that we're in. And these were Republicans, the previous two. And we just trusted them, assumed that they would do the right thing and help us navigate in this election system, and it didn't work. And now we're at this place, and now we, the people, are going to have to go ahead and straighten that out. people talk, and if you look at some of the different things, particularly there is a reporter by the name of Lynn Bartles that's with Colorado Politics, and she does some articles in our Colorado Springs Gazette. She was with the Denver Post, and when Wayne Williams became Secretary of State, she was his media person and things like that. But there is a meme out there that is communicated by her and others. Oh, Colorado's changing. El Paso County's changing. More unaffiliated. They don't like Republicans. They're not conservative. Whatever you want to say, I don't buy it. And I believe that my vote in El Paso County is being diluted by voter roll manipulation, overinflated voter rolls, changes in registration of voters, stolen voter IDs. Some places call it ghost ballots, others call it phantom ballots. I like to call it counterfeit ballots. And that's why, fake ballots, you can name it, that's why on the 18th of May, we asked our clerk and recorder to do an audit of the El Paso County ballots and the ballot envelopes because I believe the evidence is in the paper. He has, and you are doing a wonderful job on the machines and all of, but I believe we have to get to that. I think each of us have to be sure that our system works here in El Paso County. So I'm just asking you to when you get a chance to meet with your elected officials, county commissioners, clerk and recorder, I want you to ask them, why aren't you doing something about this? Why aren't you doing something about this? There are some concerns. And there is a lot of information out there. I have kind of a resource place that I could share with you regarding what I've learned in El Paso County. And this is where we have to roll up our sleeves. And we have to come alongside Tina Peters that stepped out as an elected official. A lady by the name of Sharona Bishop over on the Western Slope that really pushed. And you folks here know Sharona's presented here at the Cultural Impact Team. Ash, Holly Kasson, Sean, Charity, USEIP, all of us that have been involved in this, all of us that are pledging our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor for this effort of election integrity. We cannot stop now. We have to see it to the end.
Can I reclaim my time, Mr. Chair? I'll be quick. It's related.
I wish you
related.
could see the look I'm getting. No, just
Okay.
a minute or two.
Yeah, I just want to, so when I met Neil, we had issued a USEIP statement demanding an audit. This was back in November. And we got a hearing. We had a hearing that was where I met Sean. Neil saw the statement, learned a little bit about what we were doing, and he reached out to invite us to a call. And the call was with Chuck Browerman. So we presented evidence and concerns as citizens to Chuck Browerman in November. He's been repeatedly presented to in May and in other times. One thing that would really help clean up this whole Mesa County thing and Colorado thing is if we could look at another county and we could compare before and after forensic images from another county. Now, a constituent, and somebody sent me this email today, constituent sent Chuck an email and referencing what was happening in Mesa County and said, did you create a forensic image? Do you have a backup? Can we confirm that files weren't deleted? And his response, I kid you not, was absolutely, I follow the law. I have every election record that I need. So I would like to ask Chuck Browerman publicly tonight and on live stream, if that's true, and you have the image, let us do the comparison. Let's put it to bed.
I feel like there's a cage somewhere out in the future here. question and answer. Ken.
Thank you much. So here's how this will go. And if you attempt to wander off of these rules, I've got a lot of people here with guns. So, all right, so you see this row right here. You will line up here. You will ask no more than one question. It must be a question, not a comment. That's correct. It must be a pointed question. Don't try and make one question 3 points. You will get 1 point per question. That is how I'm scoring it. All right? And so please feel free to start lining up here. We're going to go for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But I am going to kind of kick this off. You've now heard this email mentioned multiple times. And so if I could have one person spend no more than, I'm going to ask 3. I have the mic. So, oh, by the way, do not try to take the mic from my hand. There's that too. So I have 3 questions based around this email. And if I could have one person spend no more than maybe...
So you're going to break all the rules.
I am. I'm going to break my
away.
own rule because I'm the president.
You're special. Okay.
All right. So here's how this email went. I'm going to kind of paraphrase here. I have complete backup of the election project management files. Please listen to the wording. I have saved my ballots, ballot images, envelope signatures, and chain of custody documents. I have saved all videotapes and recordings. I have performed a forensic audit, and in parentheses, risk limiting audit. Not a forensic audit. That's part of one of the questions. I also performed an independent audit, or I believe he third-partied this out to the only federally certified ballot audit team in the country, named Clear Audit. Here are the 3 questions. Is backup of the election project management files a complete backup of all election-related data on the voting machine? Is a risk limiting audit, I think you've already answered this, the same thing as a forensic audit? What can you tell us about the comparison audit and the claims that were done, the only federally certified ballot audit team in the country?
So the team knows how funny this is, but my record is perfect so far at not swearing in any public appearance, which gets harder and harder and harder. That's nonsense. So what the people need and want is a full independent forensic audit. You cannot audit the images produced by a voting system by any means and get an accurate idea of what happened on that voting system or in the election. In the first place, the machines are deliberately degrading the image quality. They don't know that we did testing and that we know what they did to the TIFF files, but we know. They're 3 times as large as they should be and about half the resolution that they should be. They have removed all the information you would need to see if they have been manipulated. That's first. Second, you can't see any of the software functionality that produced those data files. So you can't get Clear Audit. I mean, bring in anybody you want and look at the same images. You're not doing an audit. You're doing a Potemkin village so that you can say you did an audit. It'd be fun to ask Mr. Browerman who recommended that he bring in Clear Ballot to use Clear Audit. Well, yeah, Clear Ballot's the company. Clear Ballot Group is a company. Clear Audit is a service that they offer, like people will, hide a body for you. That's a service people offer. So no, that's not an audit, a risk-limiting audit. So this is part of the semantic games that public officials are either playing or have been unfortunately misled to play. The risk-limiting audit it started off, I think, like a lot of things with good intentions. Philip Stark at Berkeley, he's a professor, I can't remember if it's physics or statistics, but he invented and kind of the grandfather of this statistical method. That statistical method is an industrial control verification to determine whether or not you had machine error. If you tried to use the same method to determine whether or not your kids were lying about something, like what they did with the car, you would fail every time. It does not and cannot account for fraud. And it doesn't account for anything other than whether the machines accurately counted the images produced by the machines, which makes it useless. But what the Secretary of State and the counties really like about it is it hardly involves any effort on their part at all. And also, they really like to show you rolling the 10-sided die and then tell you that it's random. They roll these 10-sided dice like a Dungeons and Dragons game. And then, you know, everybody gets 18 charisma or whatever. And then they take those random numbers, which are in fact random. If the dice aren't loaded, we don't know, but let's say they aren't. Then they stick all of that into a computer that you can't see any part of, processing files that came from the voting systems. It's ludicrous. It's nonsense, and I'm sorry that if he thinks it's true.
I have 3 kids, all elementary aged. I would love for them to be as much educated as possible on all this on their intellectual level. Do you guys offer any kind of programs, YouTube channels, that I can start educating them that they're going to understand?
I feel like the answer is no.
Mark, would you restate the question just for me? That I think I understand what you were saying.
Yes, sir. I have 3 kids. I have a 2nd grader, a 4th grader, and a 5th grader. I would love to educate them on politics and all of the stuff at their intellectual level. What is the best way I can do that?
There are a lot of websites and online schools that can, you know, help with civics, things like that. I don't have the names of them right here in front of me, but they are available that you can learn. But from a standpoint of what's going on here in Colorado, from an intellectual standpoint, it's definitely important to go back to April 28th in the hearing that the Colorado Republican Study Committee hosted with April 24th, with Dr. John Eastman, Dr. Frank, with Sean, with Ash, and also with Dennis Haw, that really lays out where we're at in Colorado and zeroing in on that. Then there's also some information that was presented by Sean on how our electronic voting systems can be manipulated. It's a 7-minute video clip, but I don't have the address for that. But
the other thing that I would say is talk to them. So I homeschooled I have 3 boys, and I homeschool one of them because high school and they want to play sports. But talk to them on their intellectual level about fairness. This is the best time to be trying to educate kids about civic duty, because if there's one thing kids understand, it's fairness. Right? And so last year, my now 9th grader, the curriculum for his school was American Revolution. Best topic ever with what we're living, right? So I would bring them into the conversation on their intellectual level and talk to them about fairness, talk to them about, you know, ask them questions, help understand how they're processing it. That's how I would handle it, yeah.
Another aspect of this is that this is so complex. The systems that we have in Colorado right now are so abysmally complex. I mean, they're difficult to understand. They're controlled by administrative bureaucrats. That you go into administrative morass. So it's very difficult to understand these things. I don't know if I had young children, I think I would more make the case between any kind of electronic voting, which none of us would agree to, and paper ballots. You know, how things used to be done, and then, you know, the problems with these electronic systems and what fraud is. I really wouldn't delve into the ins and outs of all this craziness. I mean, it's taken people like Sean that have a good head start months to begin to get a grip on it.
And I did just get a great text, PragerU for Kids. PragerU for Kids. And of course, wall builders.
So I find it funny that you talked about paper ballots, because my question is, I cannot be alone in this, that I am over this electronic nonsense that can be hacked and changed, and I can't be alone in this. What do you think the chances are that we're going to go back to paper ballots? And not only that, but I am wanting to know if you think, because I've thought this is a good idea, let's put a separate sheet in the presidential, completely separate ballot, just with the president on there, so that piece can be divided and separated with a separate envelope inside the envelope, so that you have two ballots for that when the presidential, so you can separate the president out and you can separate all the other stuff and count by hand.
And non-mail-in.
So can I just say about that? So the only thing, that's a great point. I don't think our commissioners know this around the state. The commissioners have the complete authority under Colorado revised statutes. Tomorrow, every single county commission in the state could vote without anybody else's permission to stop using electronic voting systems in their county. El Paso County commissioners could do it tomorrow. Tell them, because there's not an electronic voting system that can be secured. They start insecure. They're insecure now. We don't have the capacity to verify what happens on them. The clerks think they have the data. They don't even know what's happening on them. It's like, did you ever, who's just women, just married women, just a show of hands, who's a married woman? Have you ever sent your husband to the store for something and gave him incomplete instructions from his perspective? Like, you know what I mean? That has happened with our voting systems. They don't know what they're doing. And they don't all know that. And we can solve that problem by not putting them in a position where they have to tell you, oh no, it's good, when they don't know what they're doing. They don't. We could do it tomorrow, and I encourage citizens throughout the state to tell their commissioners just what you said. We're done with the electronic voting systems. And if you're not done with the electronic voting systems, we're done with you.
Yeah.
Who would like to go back to precinct paper voting? What's interesting when you look at what's going on in this arena, it seems like elected officials tend to be going the opposite direction. You have the head of the Clerks Association in Colorado being a representative of Global Mobile that wants to do signature by phone, etc. You have Wayne Williams, who's a senior advisor for Runbeck. So it seems like the elected officials are being pushed towards even more electronic voting. So I think, I was listening to the War Room the other day, and there was someone from France that said in 1975, we essentially outlawed electronic voting because we saw, or mail-in voting, because it was ripe for fraud. I mean, so it's not like the rest of the world isn't enamored with electronic voting systems.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say on top of that, and it's kind of in reaction to both of your comments, is the complexity is by design. They want this to be super complicated so that they can't explain it, so that you just have to trust them. And the reality is that in canvassing, I believe it was Sharona said 5%. They're looking at like 5% error rate. In Mesa County, there are higher percentages. This is not secure. It is overly complicated so that they can pull the wool over your eyes. And oh, by the way, they've built an entire industry on this, and they don't want to let it go. But
does anybody know, anybody know what the standard assumption about error rate is for a hand-counted paper ballot? Anybody? I heard something. 2%. Half of the tolerable error rate according to the Secretary of State for the risk limiting audit. And that doesn't even count the rest of the errors.
So, following up on your statement, what is the specific state statute that I can point county commissioners to for them to recognize that they have the authority?
We can follow up. I should have it memorized at this point. It's in Title I. So in Title I, under, I think it's under General and under Conduct of Elections, and then under the approval of the electronic voting systems, where it talks to the county responsibilities, because the county commissioners are the governing body for their jurisdiction. So they are not subordinate to the state. They're the governing body that's elected for that jurisdiction. And it says that they may approve an electronic voting system. Now, they can't use an electronic voting system that the Secretary of State hasn't certified, for what it's worth, but they don't have to approve an electronic voting system. None of the clerks, I think, maybe a couple who are straight and public servants, but most of the clerks aren't going to want to hand count paper ballots. That's a lot of work. And it'll have to be back at the precinct level. And that's great. That's great for transparency. I want to see our neighbors, right? I'll help. I'll help.
I have your email address. I'll give it to Sean. And
Hello, my name's Sandy, and I have a 9-year-old, and I homeschool him. And so we are doing civics class by running campaigns for 3 school board members in District 49. And so one of the things we're going to do to complete our civics class is go door to door in one of the director districts, because District 49 is director districts, and we are going to take a tally of did you vote, and did you vote for Jamie Lynn or Dave Cruson? And see with our tally, we're literally just gonna show them, look, we're just doing tally marks. This is under this is under that. Question, sorry. Would that information be advantageous? Would you like to have that information when we finish?
I love that you're doing that. Yeah. That's awesome. That's super mom right there. I would like actually their help, your children's help canvassing in the county. Is what I would love. So I think I would love to see the results when you're done. I don't know that it can help our cause. Although if we see, that they find one candidate overwhelmingly should have won and the other one won, then that could be helpful to someone, right? But we'd love to see it after the fact. So yeah, that's so cool.
I know we're all looking forward to maybe having paper ballots and hand counting in the future, but what is it going to take for us to get them to dig out those paper ballots from the last election and do a full hand count with proper observers?
A judge.
Here's the thing I would also say about that. This is coming too. We have so many irons in the fire, and we're kind of some of us who are doing some of the work are sort of choke points. Mostly me. I'm kind of a choke point. I'm way behind. Cora. So Cora isn't just you ask for documents and they send you a copy. Colorado Open Records Act allows you as a citizen to go and view documents. So those ballots are election records. They're not allowed to let them out of their custody because they're required to retain them under the federal and state law. But they can't deprive you of your right to view them. And there's no specification for how you view them. So what we need to do is bring plans to the clerks, and their response to those plans is going to tell us how serious they are about election integrity. Because if their response is, this is going to cost you $150,000 and it's going to take 42 months, then we'll know they're not too serious. But if they're working with us to try and figure out how we can go through them, and remember, in just a few months in Maricopa, they went through 2 million ballots. Certainly we can go through less than half that amount in less than a month in El Paso County, for example, which is either the first or second largest county in the state. Once we're done, and I'm not saying I don't care about the other counties, but once we're done with the 12 largest, all the other counties are in the margin of error. If we go through the 12 largest counties and look at the ballots and ballot envelopes, not just counting them, but look at them forensically, meaning that we're going to look and see, were they marked by a person or were they marked by a machine? If they say that they're all mail-in ballots, do they have the paper damage that's typical signature of having been creased and folded? Do the envelopes show a handwritten signature or is it an inkjet printed signature? That's our right to observe those, and that's coming. So we haven't had many clerks be cooperative. We've had 2 that I'm aware of that were willing to let us look at ballots and ballot envelopes. Secretary of State and the Attorney General have tried to interfere with that to prevent the clerks from allowing citizens to look at them. So we're going to go and present plans to the clerks, and then we'll see what's what. And if they try to refuse us access that we have under CORA, under state law, then the court.
I think political pressure is incredibly important as well, because if you look at the sheet that's back there, we have the email address and phone number, the work phone numbers of the county clerk and the 5 commissioners and also the 4th Judicial District DA. And if more people would start writing impassioned letters about what is going on, I have no faith or trust. There's plenty of evidence. What is going on here? Why aren't you guys interested in investigating what's coming to the surface here? Those are very powerful things to do. And if people are running for office, you can establish talking points if a lot of people would start making a ruckus about this, going to county commissioner meetings, et cetera. That determines what becomes the agenda.
Yeah, so the reason that I said a judge is because I used to be a conspiracy theorist, but they all came true. If anybody has new ones, let me know. I don't think they're ever going to show us because I believe that they're complicit. They have the opportunity, right? There's a lot of people that have tried to work with our clerks and tried to work with our commissioners and get this done. Think of the magnitude of the crime. Right? So I think that this is a fight all the way down. I think it's going to take courts for us to be able to ever get our hands on that paper. And quite frankly, I don't know if we have the courts to do it.
You know, the elected officials are a lot like amoebas. They react violently to heat and light. And we can supply that heat and light.
Hi, I'm Lynn Albertson. I'm that door knocker extraordinaire. My question to Sean is, I saw a presentation where you, using public information, you found a computer that was shipped, a Dell computer with an internal modem with SQL software. I'm an electrical engineer also, so I understand SQL. What has been the response to that finding that you had? Has there been any response? And is there any other county that also has computers with internal modems and SQL?
So I have not. So I don't think I've checked every single county in the state. I've checked a lot of them. I downloaded most of the configuration specifications from the Dell site when I was checking them because I was afraid that they would then be erased later. Most counties have wireless modems in one or more components of the voting system, which means that when they're connected, they're all connected. And because of the way the systems are configured, so if you take, so where do I even start? Your phone. So you take your phone. Your phone has, this phone has about 65 billion transistor equivalents in it. The wiring, the scale of the circuits in this are 3/10,000ths of the width of a human hair. And if it's built overseas, which they are, all of them, every single one of our voting system computers was built overseas, every single one. You cannot ever know that they are secure. You cannot ever know what was programmed into them, not ever. The Department of Defense knows this now, and it was very costly for the Department of Defense to learn it. Very costly. I'm talking about billions and billions and billions of wasted U.S. treasure. So, and nobody's even looking, okay? Nobody's even looking. Most of the clerks didn't know when we told them that they had wireless modems in their machines. Many of them denied it because they'd been told they weren't in there. The executive director of the Colorado County Clerks Association, Mr. Crane, who's the former county clerk for Arapahoe County and a former elections director, I think deputy in Denver and maybe the elections director in Arapahoe, if I remember correctly. I can't remember his whole resume after he worked for one of the contractors that worked on SCORE while his wife was working for Dominion, but that's part of it. And so he insisted that they did not have modems. And then he was confronted. And then he admitted they had modems, wireless modems, radio modems in them, but then he insisted that they were off, which he has no ability whatsoever to determine. None of them do. I couldn't, and I kind of know what I'm doing. Cyber pros could not do it. You have to, even if you configure it and turn it off, unless you pull it out of the machine and burn it, you can't keep it from being turned on because the machines are built to be managed remotely. They are built with access for remote management. They should never have been certified. Nobody who approved their certification or tested them could possibly be both honest and competent. So yes, none of our machines are trustworthy. I don't know what's happened on them. They don't either. That's a problem.
So I want you guys to think about that for a second. We heard over and over and over again, the machines can't connect to the internet. The CEO of Dominion went in front of the Congress and said they don't have that capability. We now know they connect to the internet. They're built with modems. They all have them. Do you guys remember that huge news story breaking? No, of course not, because they just changed the narrative and they keep going. So no amount of evidence is going to be good enough for the people who are complicit in the crime. They are going to fight it all the way down. We know that the machines connect to the internet. We know that they have modems. We've seen pictures of them. And yet, that CEO is still walking around free. And all of the people who have been telling us, oh, no, they're off. Like, of course they connect to the internet. I mean, it's a technology, right? Of course they connect to the internet, but we had them off. You guys, just trust us.
Is there any possibility in the states that have proven voter fraud that they may hold either U.S. Senate or Congress elections again?
That's a difficult question to ask. And through just this whole effort, I've built a relationship with Senate President Karen Fann down in Arizona. Sean and I went down and visited, also Representative Hanks. We visited the canvassing, what they were doing. And Senator Fann made it clear from the beginning that they're not there to overturn the election. So that is just a statement that she had worked on for Arizona and what they're doing. At the same time, she also stated very clearly that 45% of the people in Arizona didn't trust the election system, and that's why the Arizona Senate had the constitutional authority through the Constitution of the state of Arizona to do this audit. We're going to hear a lot of things on Friday, 2 o'clock Mountain Time, our time, on the Arizona Legislature live stream network that we can hear that report coming out. But a couple of the conversations I had with Senator Fann is one of the things that they have done that she's going to communicate to all of the other legislators that will listen, legislators, leadership from other states, is the legislatures no longer can just believe or turn over to local jurisdictions to run the election. They need to make sure that the oversight is there. In the U.S. Constitution, the state legislatures have the oversight of the elections in their state. And also in Arizona, this is the premise that they use to do the audit, which is the identical language in the Colorado Constitution. And I ask all of you to not only understand the U.S. Constitution, which we're all very capable in, but also our state constitutions. And I want to just read a provision of the Colorado Constitution. And this is something I communicated to the Public Interest Legal Foundation. And the bottom line is that we, the people of Colorado, have been let down by the legislature. Article 7, Section 11, Colorado Constitution clearly states the purity of elections. The General Assembly shall pass laws to secure the purity of our elections and guard against abuses of the elective franchise. We, the people of Colorado, have to hold our legislature accountable for the mess that we're in with our elections in Colorado.
There's a lot of us, I think a lot of us all have that in the back of our mind. You don't know what's going to happen in the future about crimes and proof and evidence. We just don't know. Something could happen tomorrow. Something could happen next week that would radically change the landscape. And I think there you go, step by step. Because most of us thinking is, if this is fraudulent, I'm an attorney. Hey, if it's fraudulent and you can prove it, you ought to overturn some of the seats that have proven to be stolen. So I don't think that's a dead issue at all. I mean, if a crime is committed, people need to go to jail.
Yeah, and I think, constitutionally, we're in uncharted territory, right? And so that's kind of the ambiguity and uncertainty that you're getting from the group up here. I tell you what I think should happen. We should be able to open those machines and see what happened. And it should be compelled by a judge, and it should be pitchfork time, because we have evidence of a crime. We have forensic analysis done by a cybersecurity expert that shows that the trusted build was designed to delete election records that are required to be retained, preserved under the law. They broke the law, and it was designed to break the law. So, pitchfork time, that's where I'm at.
Okay, Ken, I wrote this down to stay in compliance. Thank you for what you guys are doing. You've had a lot of time to think about this and confer among experts around the state and nation. So here's a question. Soup to nuts, in bullet statement format, please. What do we do to secure elections, starting with voter rolls and voter IDs, but with specific attention in your answer to the ballot counting and reporting? Thank you.
So this is the Colorado plan. It's again super late. I'm so sorry. So you cannot trust the centralized voter registration system. They can't secure it. It's not secure. There was a 2015 Colorado auditor report on it, and there's a segment of it that's confidential. It's been kept from the public. There's a reason. If it wasn't accurate then, nothing in the database is trustworthy. They did another evaluation in 2020 with a company called Synact, and we haven't seen that report either. You think that's an accident? If there was a vulnerability in it and they weren't in control of it, we don't have a voter roll that we can trust. The answer to the voter roll is to move it back to county control, to put the clerks in control of it, let the other counties have a copy, let the Secretary of State have a copy. They can share that with anybody they want, but they can't control it, because obviously they can't control it. So that's the voter roll. The mail-in ballots has to end. There's no chain of custody on them. I think it's possible, and I think this was Mark's idea, I think you can mail out ballots. If they have a discrete identifier on them and your voter rolls weren't completely grossly inaccurate the way they are now and untrustworthy, you could actually mail out ballots if you made sure that people confirmed, yes, I'm still this person at this address. Okay, here's your ballot with a discrete identifier so that people can't just introduce random ballots. But nobody should be mailing in ballots. And the way you do that is by you just say you vote in person. Either you cast your ballot there or you hand it over there with photo ID. Now you have chain of custody again, and then you count them by hand at the precinct level under camera. What do cameras cost us? They're ubiquitous. Everybody's got one on their phone. They had at least, I don't think anybody knows the count outside the audit, but they had at least 90 cameras on the floor at the Maricopa audit. We only saw 9. They had 3 more on every table and then more on top of that. It wouldn't cost $200 to have high definition cameras at every precinct. So you video the counting, anybody can watch it replayed. If the count in the video doesn't match the count out of the precinct, something's wrong, redo it. You do it from the paper ballots again. And then you have the precincts submit those hand-signed counts to the county, and the county submit their hand-signed counts. It would have avoided this 10-month national nightmare. It would have been done the same night. We wouldn't have paid hundreds of millions of dollars for voting systems, and we wouldn't have to listen to people talk about how they're experts about the voting systems, which I think we're all pretty much over. So that's how you do it.
This isn't a bullet point, Ron, but one of the things I see is that, okay, the local clerk and recorder has the responsibility to maintain records and to run a clean election, but the clerks no longer have the authority. That authority's been taken away by the Secretary of State, by the legislature. So you look at the voter rolls. A local clerk cannot manipulate or change that centralized database. He should be able to have control over El Paso County, and he has responsibility for that database, and it's not centralized with the state. That way, you maintain some kind of control, but this centralized database, it might as well be a public access. When you're dealing with state-level actors, China, et cetera, unlimited funds, money, resources, motivation, these databases are cake for these people.
We are. So, okay, we're going to rapid fire through these last four, so no one else walk up. If you're walking up, turn around, because Ken Davis has not had dinner yet. So, we're going to rapid fire.
Okay. Can we use the Federal Trade Commission, the Sherman Act, or the Clayton Act against Dominion for their deceptive acts and practices so potentially we can sue them out of existence?
I have no faith in the courts. And another thing about courts, it's a great way, the system has a great way to dissipate your energy. And you look at courts, a stay for 2 months, another stay for 3 months. It goes on and on and on. And I think you looked at what happened with the courts in November, December, January. They didn't have the courage to even look at the evidence of these cases. I think it really comes down to more public activism, at the local level to force these issues.
And I'm just going to add in, because where we're at right now, and we're going to be hearing what's happening in Arizona on Friday, this is a political question. What's going to happen in Arizona when it is clear that the election was not tabulated correctly and someone else should have won? Okay, what is the state legislature going to do? I'm not sure they can answer that question yet. Wisconsin's doing the same thing. They just announced today that they're going to be doing an analysis of their 200,000 absentee ballots that were improperly submitted. What's going to happen when that is clear, what happened in that state and that the results were not accurate? Then you go to Pennsylvania. And again, Pennsylvania is starting to ramp up to do the same thing. Georgia, it is a political question that our state legislatures are going to have to deal with. And it's never been done before. And the last thing that we can even begin to do is have some kind of federal referee or H.R. 1 or something. The Constitution of the United States is clear. The states have the responsibility through their state legislatures to organize the federal elections. And then we choose our chief executive through an electoral college. So our U.S. Senate, our House of Representatives, it is completely in the hands of state legislatures to go through that. So that's the political question. What's going to happen when the results are overturned? And each state is going to have to make that decision.
So in Arizona, a Canvas report has already been published with pretty egregious discrepancies, but the state legislature is not being forced to acknowledge it. How confident are you that after the Canvas is complete, we can have a hearing on it in front of elected officials?
For Colorado?
After our canvassing is complete?
So the problem is that we have a triple majority of people who really, really don't want to know what happened in November, right? I think it's at the local level. So I think Mesa County will be able to, Mesa County will go before a court. I think there's no question about that, right? And so what we see there will go in a court. Now here's the thing, because there are a lot of states that are pursuing election integrity, and there's a lot happening around the country. Colorado is the gold standard. Colorado is where they baked all of these methods. We say, like, we laugh at gold standard, it's a meme now, right? But they really did pilot and bake and test all of this here. So Mesa County is the key to exposing Colorado, and Colorado is the key to exposing the nation, because it is the same sources and methods used all around the country, and they've pimped it out as the gold standard. Can I say pimp in church? Sorry, Pastor.
Didn't get an answer, did you? He's happy, but he didn't get an answer. But that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
There is no, that you cannot compel the majority to do anything because they're not accountable through the process of elections, right? So they have no interest whatsoever. What could cause them to take an interest is fearing the people. Our government must fear disappointing the people.
Yeah, exactly right. Almost exactly a year ago, Jenna Griswold was sued by local lawyers to command the compliance with the federal law requiring that the registrations be accurate. And at the conference up at Woodland Park a couple of weeks ago, with our former state senator, Lundberg, I think it was, mentioned that with their research, there could be as many as 600 to 800,000 illegal registrations in Colorado. That'll swing any election.
Question.
What's going on with the lawsuit?
Well, I think you're referring to the Judicial Watch lawsuit. And that, I think just last week, there was a court ruling that it could proceed forward. That's the only thing I could tell you.
Well, and I would also say Colorado voter rolls are like the Hotel California. Once you're on, you never get off. So 12 years after a voter, we had a guy who moved from Colorado to North Carolina, took the time to cancel his voter registration, said, I'm moving. His mother still got a ballot for him. She destroyed the ballot. He still voted. So, yeah.
Are you afraid, Ken?
No.
Okay. I have a couple comments, and then I have a...
Oh, come on, Val. Look, okay, you see that? Whatever's not done in 4 minutes.
I got you.
All right.
No one's ever going to jail. If Hillary Clinton didn't go to jail, no one's going to jail. So we, the people, how do we make sure someone goes to jail? I want to see butts in jail.
Yeah.
I want to hear this room roar. Do you want to see butts in jail? Because I do.
I think it's still law. Treason, there's a certain punishment for treason in this country. It's not jail. I'm just saying. No one's got an answer. Okay, he's going to get his question.
Just one last short one. So with all the God-created geniuses in this room and God-created geniuses here on this panel tonight, how can we ensure that the November 2021 elections for our school board and our November 2022 elections go in a way where we are correctly represented in each of those elections?
Well, I'm gonna jump in on that, and it is it is disappointing to me to think that our elections this fall could potentially have problems. Each candidate needs to follow up and do their own individual audit if they feel that there are some problems. The problems we have in El Paso County is we have voter rolls that exceed the growth in voting age population. A chart I have, I'd be happy to share it with folks over here, ammunition, and just hold it up to a county commissioner or a clerk and recorder or our DA, is how can we have voter registration 20% higher than our growth in voter population in El Paso County, 2016, 18, and 20. Explain that to me. That's what we need to be doing to our local election officials, not allow them to just say everything is okay. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Go ahead, Sean.
So you're looking at it, right? Charity's asking for help to complete the canvas. Here's what happens with the canvas. We call it voter verification. It's going around to seeing who did what. We're not asking anybody. You know, the Secretary of State apparently misinformed. It's not the first time. And thinks that we're soliciting. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know what they think we're soliciting. We're not asking anybody how they voted. We're asking people by the mechanism, if they actually live there, if they're a person, and if the party affiliation is correct. We're just asking if the state record is correct. But all those affidavits and the data from it is going to go to public officials. It's going to be made public, and it's going to go to court cases. We're going to give the affidavits we've got to Judicial Watch. And Judicial Watch is going to take them into court and say, oh, really? Your registration's accurate? How about this? Because the way that the data geniuses, they actually are data geniuses, the way that they have configured the canvassing and the sampling is not just to say, well, we knocked on 5,000 doors. It's we knocked on 5,000 doors, and because of the way in which we did it, we can make statistically valid assertions about the rest of the population of that county and the rest of the population of that state. So if you read the canvassing report from Maricopa, they didn't go knock on 90,000 doors. Right? They're giving you the statistical representation that they can assert because of what they did knock out and the way they can do it. And we're going to be able to do the same thing here. So we're going to be able to show the registration is not accurate. People voted who had no authority to vote. People who don't even exist. People voted who didn't know they voted. People voted by a mechanism that they say isn't the way they voted by. All of that, and it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, you can say it was 100 or 1,000 or 100,000. It doesn't matter the exact number. What matters is it's proof positive that their system, the system that all of the election officials are asserting is the most secure ever, that it's the gold standard, it is not secure. They do not have a safeguard, or the safeguard doesn't work. They've either been ignorant, which is possible, or they've been lying. Either way, that system does not safeguard our elective franchise. That's going to become court cases. What's that? Well, hopefully it makes you, the question was, what does it do for you now? Hopefully it makes you angry. I mean.
Yeah. Right, so I wanted to talk about that for the school board election coming up. So on November 3rd, we watched them steal the election, right? And then in January, on the 5th, we watched them steal an election. And then the recall Newsom election, we watched them steal an election. So 2 things. Always vote. Do not get disheartened and decide that you're not going to turn out, because what we know is that turnout makes it really, really hard for them. So we beat them on turnout. You show up and you vote. It is your duty to do so. The second thing is that, like Sean said, get mad. If they steal your school board election in the fall, in like a month, right? Get mad. Get even more, turn out even more. And then watchers, right? Watchers, judges show up. Make it as hard as possible for them to cheat. Because one thing that we know from Droz's analysis is that Florida screwed it up for them. The people, every time they do it, They do it in such a way that they're going to get caught. So it is going to catch up to them. We're not going to stop until the machines are gone, until people are in jail, as you said. So make it hard for them. Always vote, and make it very, very hard for them to cheat.
Can I just add, look, yeah. Can I just say that, so does anybody know, so human beings, right, Homo sapiens, we're not the fastest in the animal kingdom. We don't have great teeth for hunting. We don't have great claws for hunting. We're not the strongest pound for pound. You know how human beings killed animals? We ran them to death. We ran them to death. We never stopped. We would chase them until they were exhausted. So I inherited liberty, right? I didn't work for it, I inherited it. It's being stripped away. I'll never stop. So I know some people need encouragement and reason to hope. I don't need any of that. I just need to know what I need to pursue, and I will run it until it drops dead of exhaustion. I understand the frustration. We may be planting a tree that we never get to sit in the shade of.
You have to remember the revolution was 7 years. Frederick Douglass, I'll paraphrase what he said, but the limits of tyranny are prescribed by our endurance for it. So if we want to give up, we get what we deserve. Okay, and more, good, and that's what it takes. No, well, there's more. You don't need everybody. You need 10 or 20%.
All right. Hey, we do have to wrap up. It is 9 o'clock. Just remember, the race is not given to the swift, right? So endure. Keep fighting. There are no more comments. I love you all, but I'm going to cut this off because we have things we have to do, like, I don't know, go home, get some sleep. So really quick, there are 2 signups in the back. One, if you are not receiving the Culture Impact Team's emails or correspondence, there's a sign up in the back for you to do that. We will be having our next meeting on October 13th, which is when we will have District 11, 20, and 49, I believe. Yeah, we'll have actually almost all the candidates for our candidates forum. There you go. The other sign up, for those of you who have taken part in our Constitution class here, we're actually in the sanctuary right now because there's so many people that are signed up. We'd love to have you join us. That happens every Saturday morning. Goes from 10 to 12:30. From what I hear, the guy who runs the class is a fantastic. And Mark, of course, is pointing out, I started out with 4 people in a closet, and now we have over 100 people every week, and been doing it since 2012. This is actually the anniversary, this fall. All right, so with that, please be safe leaving here. Make sure you sign up for anything that you'd like to sign for. If we will give you only a couple minutes. We ask that the panel, if you don't mind, make your way out into the foyer where people can, put you in headlocks out there. Please give our panel and Mark Bronlick a hand. I'm pretty sure that Sean dressed up nicely because I kept pointing out that he was in a church the last time he was here, so he didn't wear his hat and sweatshirt. So thank you all. Have a fantastic evening. Go in peace. God be with you.